Hi everybody, welcome to my live Q&A for today. This is June 28th, 2018, and I'm just going to start. I know it'll take a minute for the feed to catch up, but I want to say happy birthday to my daughter, Megan. Mwah! Happy birthday to you. She is 23 and my daughter Megan, so happy birthday to you today, my darling. My daughter Megan is an amazing graduate student in speech pathology at a wonderful school. I'm not going to tell too much details. I don't want her to get called out or anything on the live, but I just want to say happy birthday, Megan. I love you. I know she's moving this weekend, so that's going to be a big thing. It's going to be hot in Chicagoland where she lives, so good luck moving. I love you. Happy birthday. And thanks for joining me. I see a few people have jumped on. Ingrid is here, and Gabby, and Patricia. Hello. And Brianne. Hi. And Anna. And Gabby says, happy birthday, Megan. That's so great. Thank you for helping me share that. She's an amazing girl, and I couldn't be more proud. I mean, you know, here's my daughter going to school to study speech pathology at my alma mater, and she's going to grow up to help other parents just like me and their kids learn how to use language. She loves the little kids, and she is going to be an amazing language facilitator. She always has fun. So, and Ingrid, hi, and Christy's here, thanks, and Candace, I see a bunch of people joining me. I don't see any questions yet pointed in. Hi, Gil. So what I thought I'd do is just share a little bit. I'm really excited. I just have finished. I've hit a little bit of a milestone for myself. I have the first 15 online families. For those of you who are joining me, my name is Marcy Melzer, and I am an intuitive speech and language pathologist, and I help parents teach their children how to use the words they need to share their wisdom with the world. And I do that with my Waves of Communication parent coaching program. It's a comprehensive program where I train parents how to be their child's language facilitators, because I learned through 30 years of practice that parents have what it takes in ways that even the best speech pathologists can't. Now, that doesn't mean that speech pathologists shouldn't be part of your language facilitation journey. And that's why I structured my program in the way that it is. I use my knowledge as a speech pathologist and my experience working in the field together with my intuitive ability and the experience of working with so many families, more than 4,000 families over the year. We sort of calculated it out. And been able to help them solve the problems that they are facing in their everyday lives with communication. Help them overcome the situations when they are limited, when their child's limited to only requesting or nonverbal ways of communication. So I see that Lena's here and Ruth is here too. So what's exciting for me in my journey as being a speech pathologist and evolving into developing language facilitation and teaching it to parents as a method of how to get their kids to use the natural communication that they can and share what's inside of them. The parents who I talk to on the phone, their kids want to communicate with them. They have things to say. There is language inside that they absolutely know about, and because they intuitively understand those messages with their kids. And when parents tell me that their kids are struggling because they're frustrated, because they have things they want to share, but every day is a struggle in their households to try to get their kids to use those words. And the way that they're going about it, I think, is what's different about than language facilitation. I think I can't say wrong, because every family gets into the communication situations that you're in by necessity. I mean, you have a child and you need to know what your child has to say. You need to know their needs, their wants, their desires, their feelings, how they're doing all the time, and what they're thinking. I mean, as a parent, you just want to know, and you need to know those things. So in the absence of language, most families develop a system of some kind. The kids get things themselves. A lot of times, the older kids, they learn quickly how to fend for themselves so that they don't have to ask. That happens. And then also families, hey, Tammy's here. Hi, Tammy, just saw you pop up. You know, other families get stuck in situations where they're using language that they learned in therapy, things like words or vocabulary to ask for the things that they want, but they're still not using natural language to communicate their feelings. And when they're, you know, when they're angry, they're using behaviors to communicate instead of words. I'm not seeing any questions pop up in here, but I do see a lot of people are here joining me. If you're here on the call, if you could, I see that Tammy says hi from Canada, and that just gave me an idea. So I know that I've been reaching families all over, and I just actually signed a new family who lives in Macedonia. So I'm like filling in this part of the map because we got UK, and now I've got Macedonia, and I've got this little island on the South Spain. So I'm getting the middle part of the map filled in, and I've just had a number of families sign from Texas. So right over here. So if you're watching this, if you could put in the comments where you're watching from, that really is a great thing for me to understand where I'm finding families, because now I have families all the way from, you know, up here to all the way down here. It's over here in Australia, and in between in Singapore, and all the way in Europe and stuff. So, and here's somebody who says Ingrid's from Ireland, and I'm so glad that this time of day works out, that I'm able to get people who live all over the world to join at this time. And so Gina's from New Jersey and Ingrid's from Ireland. Thanks so much for sharing where you're from. Since I don't have any questions, and I'll go ahead and tell you a little bit more about the kinds of families that have been calling. When I first started doing this, I wasn't sure. Hey, I see that Christy, let's see, Southport, UK. So I've got UK, and there's Gabby from Dallas. Excellent. So I've got a few. Actually, I just signed a family from Dallas this past week. They've just started on their language facilitation plan. How it works with my program is that if you think that if you're stuck in these nonverbal communication patterns, or using the scripted phrases or things like that, or your child, you know, you're figuring it out on your own. I mean, like I said, it happens by necessity. So if you're finding your family is stuck in these nonverbal communication, and everything you try, if you read an article or you saw a video, or even if the things that I've coached you, you know, that you've seen in the videos that I've done, if any of those things aren't working for you, you know, then it might be time for you to think about getting a language facilitation strategy session with me, where we can problem solve and see what's going on and find out where things are stuck. And because that's the best thing about waves of communication, is that I help parents get out of those patterns that you get stuck in by necessity and into natural language. So, all right, so here's a question. Kirsty says, her 3-year-old ASD and SPD, for those of you who don't know, ASD is autism spectrum disorder and SPD is sensory processing disorder, mimics a lot but doesn't use his own speech or language. So the first question I usually ask parents, Christy, is, and Monica's here, hi, and Nicole's here too. Thanks for joining me, ladies, and we're doing this live Q&A today. So the first question I usually ask parents when they tell me that their children are using their own or the language that they've picked up, I have to find out where did they pick up that language from. And why are they using it? So the fundamental situation about language facilitation and how to get kids out of using those things is to find out how they learn those things and however they have had access to them, and then what are they using those phrases for. So if your child is using to request something, it's typical for kids to be taught the vocabulary to label it. So if you want water, you say water. And then hi Tracy, and then so when you learn those phrases, you have them accessible because you've been taught them by a therapist, or kids may have learned those phrases that they're using to ask for things from a movie, or it might have happened that the phrase that they're using worked another time. So it usually is something that was super fun, that they really wanted a lot, and they said it and they got it, and so they realized that that's the word you say to get good stuff. And so they might use that word. They don't mean it to use the thing that they got in the first place. They use those phrases to mean everything they want. So, you know, if your child said cookie, it kind of popped out, sort of happened, and you were so excited and you gave them a cookie, then that's the way that they learned to get things, is by saying cookie, not that it means that thing. So, and Christy says, here's a little more clarification. Mr. Tumble is a massive part of his speech. Everything he says, he's hard, everything he says, he's heard off that show. Oh, Mr. Tumble. It must be a show that is where you live. I don't know Mr. Tumble, but I can get it. Is he one of the Mr. Men? I know the Mr. Men books, and from a long time ago. But if he's a little round blob guy with legs, one of those Mr. guys. So Mr. Tumble, he probably tumbles around and does some cool things. But he never uses his phrases in the right context. So he's learned things from Mr. Tumble, which he must love to watch a lot. And that, and the moment that he learned it, that thing resonated with him as a meaning, almost like this means pencil. You know, for him, it connected that phrase he saw on Mr. Tumble means whatever he's using it for. And the best way to work kids out of that is to think about what it is that they're trying to say when they say the phrase from Mr. Tumble, and give them the language for that in the moment. All right, so I hope that helps. Janelle, thanks for joining me. Janelle says, my son is almost 5, mentally 1.5 to 2. I'm not sure how you determined that, if it was on a testing or something. Has GDD, which is global developmental delay, and severe nonverbal autism. Hasn't clicked with PECS, sign language, or any way to talk. Has 4 words. What can we do at home to help him? All right, so Janelle, there are some specific criteria that your child needs to have to be able to learn language. And for a child who, you know, presents like, you know, this, the things that I would do with you would, in a strategy session, if we were on the phone together, is I would ask you some more questions about his abilities. Because in order to really be able to make language facilitation work at home, you have to get these abilities going. And a couple of them you pointed to here. He has 4 words. So that means that physiologically he can say words. Hopefully he can hear. So the first criteria for you to be able to do some coaching to be able to help him, you know, get him doing more language is I forgot what I was just going to say. I was just looking at sign your thing. Oh yeah. So just to make sure that he can say words and he can hear. And if he has 4 words, that means that he can. So the next thing is that he mentally is at 1.5 to 2, which means that if even he's scored at that age, 1.5 to 2 years old is the age mentally when children learn new language for the first time. So if he at least has the ability to follow simple directions doesn't have to be on your terms. When I talk about these criteria for kids, I talk about it from their ability, not their willingness. So when I say, does your child follow directions, that doesn't mean that they always do it every time you ask. It just means that can they follow direction when they want to. So for example, if your child is giving you something to open and you say, put it here on the counter for me, and they do that right away so that you can help them, then that's ability to follow a direction. Obviously, they're motivated to want to get help from you, so they'll listen to you give them some clarification to how to do it. Also, if you've been able to teach your child to do other things, put a dish in the sink, pick up their toys, not again when you every time you ask, but when you're motivated and fun and happy, or if you've taught them something like brushing teeth or any kind of self-care thing that they've had to learn that they didn't used to do themselves, then you should be able to teach language facilitation. So what can I do at home to help him is if he hasn't clicked with PECS or sign language or any way to talk, I'm not sure why that is that he hasn't clicked, because I don't know what he's been exposed to so far. So if you have been trying to get him to do things by prompting him and expecting him to follow a direction or do what you say, or respond to a prompt, that could be the problem, is that he's feeling too much pressure from the prompting to want to perform to get the reward. He's really still stuck in the mode of, I'm content with you anticipating all of my needs and I'll just wait it out until you solve all my problems. So that could be why you're stuck where you are. And what I would recommend for you is that if you are interested in finding out exactly the strategies to get unstuck from that current situation, is to schedule a strategy session with me so that I can get you enrolled in Waves of Communication and we can get you started, because that's what I do for families, is evaluate their situation so that I can understand exactly what is keeping you stuck in these patterns. What's stopping you from learning other ways to communicate, verbal ways of communication, and help you overcome those blockages. So that's what I do in the program. So Janelle, if you have the means, I highly recommend that you go to my website, wavesofcommunication.com, and view my free class, because it's going to outline all the criteria that are necessary for your child to be able to respond to this kind of training for you. And I will imagine, even though you talked about all these negative things that your child has, I'll bet you that there are many positive things about how your child interacts with you that when you see in my class, you'll understand that your child does have ability to use language, and you have ability to bring it out in a natural way, in a way that's comfortable for them to use their own language, just like the other gal who talked about scripted phrases and stuff. Okay, so, and Shrizel, hi, thanks for joining. And Candace says, yes, my 3-year-old ASD have learned will ask for cookie bottle when he is hungry. So he'll say cookie, perhaps, I think this is what you're saying, Candace, he'll say cookie every time he's hungry. It's kind of like teaching a child to say eat, because the first time that they have it, and cookie worked for him to get a cookie, which is something to eat. So now he thinks that every time he is hungry, saying cookie is going to communicate what's going on. And so what you need to learn, Candace, in your strategies, in your language facilitation plan, would be exactly how to show your son how to move from, because that's what language facilitation does. It moves kids from your current communication circumstance to using natural verbal language systematically like that. And you do this by changing your habits as a parent, okay? When parents get a language facilitation plan, this is not a plan for your child. This is one plan for you, parents. And if you have more than one child, yeah, that was something I was going to mention too. Yesterday, I just had a language facilitation strategy session with a gal from Dallas who has 3 children. She has a 10-year-old, 10-and-a-half-year-old, a 6-and-a-half-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And all of them are late talking. And her older kids are only using the scripted phrases that they've learned in therapy for requesting, and they're using all kinds of other nonverbal expression and gestures and taking and sounds and all kinds of other things between the 3 of them that they have in their family going on with this communication system that they have. And the ones that talk better than the other ones are helping them out and empowering them to stay nonverbal. And so she needs one plan, this mom, to help her sort of rally in all of those other systems that have been created by necessity by her children that she's responding to. So instead of her taking control of this is how communication happens naturally in our household and this is how we're going to facilitate it with everybody, each at their own level, but her behaviors, her language facilitation is what's going to have to change. And when she makes those changes, that's when the kids start to embrace and learn to use language functionally, successfully for themselves. And then they buy in, and there's no more fighting. Okay, so that's the thing. There's no more. One of the things that sometimes parents say is that they run into kids who they're worried that because I say that you do language facilitation all day, every day, that you are going to be fighting with your child all day, every day to pull words from them. Excuse me. So the thing is, language facilitation eliminates all of that 100%. Any prompting that you will ever do for your child will be in the way of encouragement, not in expectation. And that's a little bit vague and hard to understand, but when I coach you through your strategies in my program, you'll understand exactly what I mean by embracing your child's feelings about the situations and understanding what they're trying to communicate and providing them with the means to try to communicate what they're trying a new way, a good way, so that we'll take whatever strategies are working in your family and keep them, and the rest we'll get rid of and replace them with strategies that are easy, happy, safe, and fun. All right, Janelle says, yes, he has no hearing issues and he does have the ability to talk. Yes. Yes, he has some things he can do. Yes. Once or twice he can do, right, like I said, still in diapers, no self-care. And so, Janelle, your evolution as far as language facilitation is going to look different from other families. But the most important thing for you to understand is that whatever you have now, remember we're at position A, needing to get to position B. Position B is natural verbal language. But if you start with a child who has not had any systems communicating, the other question that I always have, Janelle, is, how is your child communicate? Here he goes. Here she says, that makes sense. He seems like a perfectionist and doesn't like us to see or hear new things until it's perfect. That really happens a lot. Thank you. I think I'll take you up on this. And I'm really glad, Janelle, because I'm very anxious to talk to you about your son, because that's the reason that I do these language facilitation strategy sessions with every client. Because here's the thing. In order for you, because you're the one who's doing the work, okay, I'm providing you with the exact strategies on how to make that happen, okay? And those strategies are based on your family's resources, where you are right now. It doesn't make sense for me to give you anything unless, number one, I know that your child is capable. Like I said, they meet these basic criteria, which is why everybody watches my class before they do a strategy session, because I want you to understand. I mean, it's educational, but it really does sort of help wrap the whole thing together and explain exactly how and why it works. And once you understand what happens there in the first class, in that free class, then you feel like, okay, I've got this in me. My child has words that I know they can say. I know that it's in there, but I just don't know how to get it out. I just don't know how, and pulling it out isn't working. So I need an alternative. And then those are the families that give me a call, because then they get on the phone and I explain to them exactly how in your own case that alternative works, because it works different for every family, because every child is late talking for a different reason. And your family, Janelle, is very different than, you know, Brianne, who I'm just getting ready to talk to. So I really hope that you schedule a session so that we can figure out in your case if in fact you think that it can work. And then if it does, then we'll talk about the program and how it works and everything, and you can decide if you want. But, you know, in order to really know, it all has to be up to you. All right, so let's see. Great, I hope to schedule with you, Janelle. And here's Brianne. Hi, Brianne. Brianne's been with me for a while. She knows a lot about my 30-day lives and has been an amazing language facilitator mom, and a language facilitator aunt, because, or big sister, I guess. Your little brother's 8, has Down syndrome, right? And we talked about him having hearing issues, I think, even before. Recently been trying to talk more, which is great. His tongue is pretty thick and seems to interfere majorly with production of intelligible words, and that's a typical structural thing with Down syndrome. My mom has been wondering if there are exercises or something we can do to help him with that. So the best way to practice, remember, we deal with what we have structure-wise, and sometimes the facial structure of people when they have Down syndrome is a little bit different, and that thick tongue that you're describing is very common. In fact, when kids are very little, and this might have been the same with your brother, they often have a tongue out posture, you know, a forward kind of low tone, thick tongue kind of sounding thing. Now, the only way to make improvement in the structural use of your oral motor stuff is to practice it. So in your case, it's going to have to be functional practice. And my recommendation is to practice with saying words. In a speech therapy setting, a speech therapist would work with your brother and your mom to find things. If he's practicing reading, that's a great thing, the things that he's able to read, or to describe pictures, but start with things that he easily can articulate. So if it's single words that are even multi-syllables, so like hippopotamus, anything 3 or 4 syllables is as long as you want to get. And the practice with that has to be what in speech therapy worlds they call drill work, which means practice, practice. It's the equivalent of going to the gym and working out. If you do it often, even if you don't have heavy weights, you're still gonna build muscle mass in your arms. If you lift a 1-pound weight every day, eventually that'll get easier, and then you lift 2-pound weights every day. When you're trying to overcome structural differences like weight loss or, you know, structural problems here, since your brother can talk and he does say words, really give him a good model so that he knows what to imitate. Put him in front of a mirror so that he can see himself, and make sure that his mouth is moving as precisely and carefully as he can, and practice multi-syllable words and short phrases. I love you is 3 syllables too. So practice things that you model for him and have him say, and the more he practices talking in a structured setting like that, then it'll work. Uh-oh, my phone just rang, sorry. Little side music there. Sorry about that. Okay, so I hope that that'll help you. So keep it simple and frequent practice. So a little bit of practice like that every day, Brianne, that's going to help you see some improvement with your brother, okay? Good. All right. And there's Wang and Mary. Hi from the Philippines. It's almost midnight. Thanks for staying up with me, Mary. And Glormar and Colleen. Hi, Colleen. Thanks for joining me. And let's see. T-Mac is here. And here's Candace, who says, what we struggle with is when I discipline. Using a firm tone in my voice. My son now disciplines me with a firm tone when he is upset, especially in public. How do you think verbally discipline without him mimicking my parental discipline? How do you verbally discipline without him mimicking discipline when he's frustrated? So, what's good about your son, Candace, is that my website, sorry, Lori just popped on and said, what is your website? wavesofcommunication.com. And so, Candace, here's the thing about verbal discipline. All right, your child is in an imitation mode right now. So it could be, I'm not sure what you're doing, if you're doing anything as far as working on therapy. But your therapist is probably, like most therapists, working on getting your child to imitate you. So it's kind of like the same circumstance when you keep asking your child questions and then they ask for things by asking a question like, can I help you, when they want help. And so if you're, because your child is watching you all the time, Candace, to see how you are communicating with your son. And so he sees your facial expression, he reads your energy, and when you are upset, like let's say it's something like don't run in the street, okay? Because that's something you can't let happen. It's a safety issue. There's no question about if that's an undesirable behavior, okay? So if you're teaching your child to run in the street and you say, don't run in the street, you're upset because the street's busy, it's a safety issue, your emotions are up, and so your son is learning, don't run in the street means I'm upset with you. Because right now you're upset because you want your child to stop, but he sees it as you're upset like I'm doing something wrong, which he is. Running in the street is wrong. It's not the behavior you want. It's not the right behavior. The right behavior would be stay here or understand that the street is busy and we don't run in the street. The wrong behavior is I don't even understand that the street is busy and run in. And so in an ABA approach, they would be, all right, that's behavior we have to get rid of. We have to replace it with, I know the street's busy and I'll stay out of it. So when you look at discipline, you have to understand, you have to break it down to this is the problem here. The problem is my son doesn't understand that now he cannot run in the street, okay? He doesn't get it. Because if he got it, he wouldn't be running in the street. So you have to teach him the concept behind that before you can expect him to understand it when you say it to him. Because he doesn't know what that means, don't run in the street. He just sees, yikes, it's an upsetting situation, I'm loud, and this can't happen, and so whatever. And if it happens that you're disciplining because your son is using behavior to communicate, like he takes things from people because he doesn't know how to ask, that's obviously not a desired behavior. But it's not because your child is naughty. It's not because he wants everything in the world. I mean, he may want everything in the world because he, is self-absorbed like many young children are. I don't know how old he is, Candace, but the thing is, in that situation, it cannot be about the emotion. It has to be about the lesson. And the lesson has to be understood or it will continue to happen. That's the same philosophy as can't get my child through the store without a meltdown. My child wants to have everything. I can't even take him to the store because you have to teach that whole circumstance. So I'm not sure what it is, Candace, that you're disciplining about, but my advice is, instead of reaction, you need to teach from the ground up, and if possible, avoid the situation to begin with from the beginning, from the get-goes. All right, so Renee says, hi Renee. Renee says, how much should a 2.5 to 3-year-old be talking? So typical language development by 2 years old starts with, by 2 years old, 24 months, 50 usable words, not just for asking, but for I love you should be in there, you know, because usually the first words that emerge at 18 months to 2 years, somewhere in there. Some kids don't start till 2 years. That's why I don't really like to identify late talking until then, because so much happens to a late talker's first moments that are so different. If you're a preemie alone, you could be up to 6 months behind, just catching up to your physiology, you know, getting out. Not that you were 6 months early, but you know, if you're 3 months premature, there's 3 months that should be off your developmental chart anyway, because your brain just isn't developed enough to learn how to learn. And then when you learn how to learn, you learn language. And so sometimes that doesn't happen. Other times, other things that can put kids late is if they have physical issues that cause them to be late moving around, walking. Late walkers are usually late talkers, because about the time that kids start to get around and explore their environment is when they start to have more to say. So typically by 2 years old, a child's walking pretty comfortably. They're getting around, exploring their environment. And so if they're getting around and exploring and they're not using language, that's when you know that there's a delay, okay? So 50 words and starting 2-word combinations, not I want something, but my cookie, or go bye-bye, or, you know, your shoes, my shoes kind of thing. Bye-bye, mommy, those kinds of things at 2 years old. So by 2.5 to 3, a typically developing child, if by 2 they're already starting to use 2-word combinations, so by 2.5 to 3, they should be using a variety of different ways to talk, not just asking, but they should have words to say when they're upset. I'm sad, I'm mad, you know, that's a bummer, you know, is the word that I love to tell my families. You know, they're communicating how they feel by 2.5 and 3 for sure, if they're natural language development. So there's some basics for you, Renee. Brianne says, thank you. I'm going to hop off this and call my mom before I forget all this. Good. And the replay will be here, Brianne. It'll be up after this today. So if you want to have your mom come back and pop on so she can listen to me talk about it, that would be great too. Candace says, you used a perfect example because he's great at running off and towards the street. Yikes. And you do panic, of course. Yeah, that's a scary thing. And so if that is consistently a problem for you, one that's got you worried, you know, one that's got you keeping up at night, one that's got you putting locks on the doors, I mean, then that's something that you need to teach from the get-go before your child has verbal language for it, and then you need to give them verbal language for those things right away, so that you know that when you do get upset, because that's who you are, Candace, you know, he's 3, so you know your emotion, I mean, of course you're freaking out. Here's your 3-year-old running towards the street, so you know you're going to lose your emotions, and that's who you are emotionally, and that's where the language facilitation parent mindset kind of comes into play, where you're realizing how important words are in these situations so that you continually teach your child. So so that's really good. All right. Mary says, Mary, who's up till midnight, says, Mary, my son has ASD. He was nonverbal till he was 3. He has been verbal for a year, but repeats the same question over and over, even if he knows the answer. Like, what is an animal? He'll ask that 3 to 6 times a day. Okay. So, Mary, I think what might be happening in your case is that your son has somehow, you know, worked with questions in his therapy, treatment, ABA, something like that. Because if they're teaching him, so the way that structured therapy teaches kids to expand on the requesting thing is to answer WH questions. That's the next sort of big thing that's supposed to make your family, your communication more broad. But once again, it requires a prompt. Somebody has to ask you that question for you to answer. And so it sounds to me like your son has spent a lot of time learning how to answer questions. And so he's had a lot of people asking him questions, kind of like I talked about with that previous family, so that he's requesting from you by using that question. So when he says, what is an animal, you need to think in your head, what does he mean? Is he really asking about an animal? Or is he saying that when he wants you to play a question game with him? Or when he wants to look at an animal video? Maybe there was a what is an animal video that he liked that was, you know, a YouTube video about what is an animal? An animal is blah, 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 blah. And a lot of times kids with ASD love those introductory explanation kind of videos, especially if they show pictures of animals and stuff, because they present things in short, you know, what is an animal? Here's 5 bullet points. An animal has legs. An animal, you know, blah, 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 you know. And it's just kind of like people do YouTube video trainings for people. 5 ways to facilitate language in the shower. You know, I could do a video like that. And kids like it, kids with ASD like it because they like those bullet points. They like those little things because they learn in chunks. They learn things to grab, to use, to communicate later. So your son is using that phrase, what is an animal, to ask you for something. When he says it 3 to 6 times a day, you have to figure out what he's asking you for and give him the words for that instead, and help him use those words to ask you for it. All right, so Lizbeth is here, and Kendra, Tyson, Crystal. If you're watching me and you just tuned in, please put in the comments where you're watching from. I see a lot of people have tuned in. Some people are jumping on and off as I answer questions, but it really helps me, you know, feel cool about, like I said, I got this world map behind me. I get so excited because my personal mission is to let as many parents know that you have the ability to make these big changes with your kids and your communication. And I want to reach everybody all over the world in as many languages as possible and as many countries as possible. So, hey, Crystal says Bay Area. Which Bay Area, Crystal? Because we have Bay Area here in Florida near where I live, Tampa Bay, but I also know there's San Francisco Bay and a lot of bays. So what state are you in? That would be cool to know. And there's Jenna, hey. And Jenna, Mary says that her son goes to speech therapy and OT. So my suspicion is that they're working on answering questions. San Francisco Bay, Crystal says. So, and there's the whole other one. So thanks for joining me from San Francisco, Crystal. All right, and there's Candace who's joined. All right, so let's see. I don't see any more questions right here. We've been at this for about 45 minutes. I hope that you all have gotten some benefit from this, but I do have one thing I want to mention. I know that I've been talking about the program quite a bit today. I have 15 families, so my goal for myself was, as soon as I established the proof of concept enough that I have been able to get 15 families in the program, or July 1st, that my introductory period would be over and the price of my program is going up to its next level. And so the price point for the program is increasing by $500 on July 1st. It still is incredibly reasonable because the overall value of the program is more than $12,000, and I'm doing it for way less than that. and there are some payment options available, and I partnered with PayPal to let families, if they can qualify, to be able to get the program, you know, with no money down now. I'm trying to make it as accessible as possible to people. So if you have been concerned about, you know, your child and you really want to decide and pull the trigger and get it going now and get out of these habits, because the thing is, the longer you wait to get started with language facilitation, the longer your child stays in those scripted phrases, using questions, things like that. And the families in my program, they're getting kids to abandon those phrases for natural language starting within the first week. And the hope that I have, the other thing about timing for this is just, you know, sort of a way that the universe is nudging me to nudge you to make the call and get it started, because you could see a different child when you go to school in the fall. You know, you could have a new situation. You know, I think that's the best thing. Like, you could spend this time that you're home with your child during the summer while you're having fun, facilitating language and getting things going, to the point where you could be looking at a different educational placement in the fall. All the families that have started in my program are all reevaluating their school for the fall. Some kids are going to preschools, natural, social, Montessori. There's another one who's going to a really cool mandala school in Spain, where they're really embracing the Montessori learning, but her child wasn't ready for the kind of group learning circumstances and social communication that she was this year, even a month ago. And she's made so many fabulous gains that they've just enrolled her in that school today, and they're seeing really nice improvement in their home and out in their community, and they're doing language facilitation at a birthday party today. I can't wait to hear the results of that. It's going to be great. All right, Crystal does have a question here before I jump off. What's the best way to increase receptive language skills? Ethan doesn't answer to his name and will point when you say, "Where is the moon?" but will not follow one-task instructions like "Go get your shoes." All right, so in my language facilitation families, usually, like I said, it's a matter of not understanding exactly what you want them to do or not buying in. They either don't want to do it or they think it's too hard. There's only two reasons that children don't follow directions. They either don't want to or they think it's too hard, even though you know they can do it, like "Go get your shoes." And what I coach families to do is that you have to make that task easy, happy, safe, and fun. And I don't know, Crystal, if you're familiar with Mary Poppins and that whole spoonful of sugar and how she helped the children clean up the room by, you know, magic, and how the basic is, you know, even if it's things that we don't like to do, if it's fun and motivating, we might try at it. So there has to be a useful reason for them to do it, or it has to be really fun. If it isn't fun, it isn't fun, and you can say it a million times, "Go get your shoes." But if I'm already distracted and doing something else that I want to do right now, I'm not listening to you and I'm not going to get it, that's the fundamental problem. So you have to first get your child's attention and literally help them get it done in a fun way. And if you do that consistently and don't fight with your child anymore about it, then pretty soon you'll learn when your child is not listening or not understanding. Because if you explain your task 100% easy, like they've never ever gotten their shoes ever before, and you say, "Oh, here's where your shoes are. They're in your room. Come with me. Let's get your shoes." Almost like they didn't even understand what you said. "You must not have understood me. I must have to help you with this task." And you help them through it. They're going to be like, "Wait, I don't need your help to get my shoes. I know how to do this." Great. And then when they do, you reward them for having the initiative to getting their shoes and following your direction when you get it the first time. But you have to overcome any kind of, you know, if you say it once and they don't do it, and you say it again and they don't do it, you say it 3, 4, 5, or 10,000 more times, they're still not going to do it. You're not going to be able to get them to change. You have to help them through the task in order to show them that you really want them to get done, okay? Make it easy. Easy, happy, safe, and fun. All right. Hi, Amanda. Thanks for joining me. All right, I think I'm going to pop off of here because I know these videos get kind of long. This one's already getting to 49 minutes, I see. So I'm going to jump off of here for today. I'm going to keep doing these live Q&As every Thursday from now on. This seemed to be pretty well attended. A lot of people go, "You're welcome, Crystal." Crystal says thank you. And there goes my phone ringing again. Hang on a second. So sorry. That must mean, sorry, that must mean somebody's trying to get a hold of me. So I'm going to jump off this live right now and say thank you so much for joining. If I have helped you on this video today, please share on your website this video or any other video that you have that I might do as a sort of exchange for my feedback. That helps me share my mission of communicating my words and this idea that parents are language facilitators to communicate with everybody. So if I've helped you today on this call, please share and join me next week. And I'm always popping on with another video, like I just did this one this week about ABA. Was a very lively discussion. We had a lot of people on there. So I'll be coming back and doing more lives on different topics. And if there's something that you're interested in me talking about or addressing, I'm always happy to take suggestions about putting videos together, because I really want to help parents understand that this is something you don't have to be stressed about. You don't have to be worried about. Even if your child is 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 and nonverbal and only using the tablet to communicate, if your child can say words sometimes when they want to, you can teach them to use verbal language. So check out my website, wavesofcommunication.com. Reach out to me here and write a comment, or you can even send me a private message and I'll tell you more about how to get started and get more information. Till next time, thanks for joining me, everybody, and have a great day. Enjoy your summer and winter if you're on the other continent, on the other side of the world. So enjoy your week and keep at getting those kids starting to use language. You can do it. Bye, everybody.